Welcome to the Rewild Your Business podcast. I'm your host, Jill Mokes. Thank you so much for joining me again this week. Oh, I was very overexcitable last week with that 200th episode celebration. Oh my God, it was such a good week. I had so many lovely messages and emails from people. I don't think I'd really realised how much of a milestone it was to cross that 200 episode mark. Yeah, and it feels very appropriate. So today's a full moon as I'm recording this. And I always think a full moon is a really good time to kind of reflect on achievements and allow them to really sink in and inform what you're moving into for the next part of the year. And so really, I've allowed myself a little bit of a patting on the back over the last week or so. But onwards and upwards, we are now on to episode 201. 200 is a mere memory. And this week, I want to talk to you about collaboration. This is something that is incredibly dear to my heart. I have been fortunate enough to collaborate with some incredible women, and I just suddenly thought, you know what would make a really good episode is something around what makes a good collaboration and why collaborate? Why? What's in it for us other than the obvious things that we hear about all the time? It's like, access to each other's email lists. And for me, it's so far removed from that. It's much bigger than that. And at the moment, I've kind of got 4 collaborations on the go, all of which feel incredibly valuable. And 2 have been ongoing for a long time. 2 are more seasonal, more kind of things that I'm focusing on right now. So I'll share those things with you. But really, this episode is about really getting under the skin of what collaboration is. Not like the social media, whack someone's name or just tag them on something and suddenly you're collaborating on something, and calling it a strategic partnership. It makes me die. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about real collaboration, the kind of relationships and the kind of joint ventures, joint projects that can really change the shape of your business, actually. Projects that really kind of stretch who you are, and working together, you get to create something that neither of you could have done alone. I think that's where collaboration comes into its own. It isn't about just sharing the workload. It's about how do we come together and create something bigger, more valuable, incredibly special that neither of us could have done on our own. I honestly think, done well, collaborations might be one of the most powerful and yet underused in the right way tools that are available to us. Particularly as women, I think we're really good at collaborating and finding the right person to collaborate with is so important, because honestly, done badly, you can end up sinking a ton of time and money and energy and, all of that into a badly chosen collaboration. So we're going to cover all of that today. We're going to talk about the opportunity when it comes to collaborating, what the green lights look like, what the red flags look like. Yeah, so let's dive into the episode. Welcome to Rewild Your Business, the podcast for women doing the work their soul intended. I'm Jill Mokes. I'm an international business coach, and I'm a guide for women doing the work that matters. Rewilding your business means cutting away what doesn't belong to allow what does to thrive, finding simplicity in your work. And it's about bringing the whole of who you are to the table, whether you're building something new or finding your way back to what really matters to you. I'm so glad you're here. So the first thing I want to kind of acknowledge is that the way collaboration is often talked about in business spaces, I don't think really applies to the way that most of us operate, right? So that conventional message around, find someone with a complementary skill set at a similar audience, do a thing together and cross-promote it and grow your email list and then move on, right? For me, that's not really a collaboration. That's just a transaction. That's just a let's share our email list, or you promote my thing and I'll promote your thing kind of energy. That's not what I see as a true collaboration, particularly between women who really are building businesses that are in absolute alignment with what matters to them. For women like us, the stakes of collaboration are much, much higher, because when we collaborate with each other, we're not just combining our audiences together to get a wider reach, we're actually combining our energy. And what we're going to do is we're going to put our name and our brand and our reputation, we're going to put that really close to another person's. And your audience, the people in your network, the people in your world, they are going to notice that. They're going to feel it. They're watching. I don't mean in a stalkery, critical, weird way. But, when you have people in your world who trust you, then they are going to be paying attention to who you trust. So I don't see collaboration as just a marketing strategy. It's not about that. It's actually a declaration. It's you saying, this person is in my world. This person's values are close enough to mine that I'm willing to build something with them, something new, something neither of us could do on our own. And that's why I think it's so important to pick wisely in terms of who you collaborate with, right? So when you find the right collaborator, magic happens, honestly. Thinking about the collaborations that I've been involved with, so ongoing, my collaboration with Lauren Jones, who's my co-founder of Unapologetic Retreats, and the first retreat that we held in Portugal was also in collaboration with Alicia Rodriguez. And God, working with those women, oh my gosh, it's an incredible experience to come together and work with women who allow you to expand. In other words, you come together and what you're doing isn't diluting what each of you brings to the party. Because I hear that actually from some clients who will say, well, I feel like if I bring someone else in, am I going to kind of lose a bit of the essence of what I've built? Right? And I get it. It's a valid question. But honestly, the right collaborations, they don't dilute you. They absolutely amplify you. They bring like a new lens to your work through their eyes. And honestly, the right collaborators, they help your audience see you even more clearly. So a couple of strong, distinct voices in conversation create more depth, not less. So yeah, like I say, my co-founder of Unapologetic Retreats is a perfect example. We've held workshops together. We've been to events and spoken together. And our shared values mean that we can come together, Lauren with her brand lens, me with my thought leadership and legacy kind of lens. Oh my goodness, it's such a perfect pairing. So that's one example of an amazing collaboration. The second thing actually is that you do reach people that you couldn't necessarily reach on your own. And I don't mean that in like that cynical, I want your email list kind of way, but genuinely you do. When you collaborate with someone whose work like maybe attracts a slightly different corner of your ideal client market, then you're creating a bridge by working together. And the people who kind of cross over that bridge to you and to them, to your collaborator, they often will become some of your most loyal clients because they arrived through a relationship that they already trust. So perfect example of this is that I collaborate regularly with the Institute of Coaching Studies, headed by the wonderful Marion Tilley. The Institute of Coaching Studies is a coach training company, and some of my most wonderful clients who have become coaching clients of mine have found me through the quarterly business building webinars that I do for the Institute of Coaching Studies. Again, it's a bridge. So my audience often are coaches who may not have done their training yet. So when they hear that I'm doing a talk for the Institute of Coaching Studies, they're crossing over that bridge to the Institute. And absolutely, I know of quite a few people from my world who have gone on to study inside the Institute of Coaching Studies. And then vice versa, once someone who is in the Institute's world knows that I'm going to be holding a webinar, I'm going to be teaching something around building a business as a coach, afterwards, they will reach out to me to find out about how we can work together so that I can support them to build their business because they want to go a bit deeper. Perfect collaboration. Would I collaborate with absolutely any coach training company? Absolutely not. It has to be a business or a person whose values are aligned with yours. And I love everything about the way the Institute is run. I actually did my own PCC training. I've just completed through the Institute, actually. Oh, how exciting is that? So finding collaborators with those similar values, so important. And once you do, you want to be reaching the people that they reach because you know that those people have been attracted to them because they have a similar set of values, that what matters to them matters to you. So that can work incredibly well. Another thing is that I see collaboration, honestly, as a bit of a creative accelerant. The collaboration for me that comes to mind here, there's two, and these are two actual current collaborations that I am just beginning to work on. One is with Rebecca Gunter, and we are working on a project together. I'm not going to say too much about it. I'm just going to tease it. I'm going to leave it there for you at the moment. But honestly, our first session of brainstorming what this project was going to look like was electric. It was one of the most creative conversations I think I've probably ever had. We were like, but what if we just did this? And what if we just didn't care about that and we just went for this? And the two of us were absolutely creatively, setting fire to each other. And that sounds a bit bad. Don't mean it in a bad way. Mean it in a good way. There is just something about that dynamic of building with someone else, the kind of riffing together, the challenging each other. You just end up with thinking that you wouldn't have when you're just working alone. Creative work when you're in dialogue with someone else, then collaboration for you is just not just a nice to have. It's a creative necessity. You know that this podcast now is on Substack. I see so many amazing collaborations happening on Substack, and it's a perfect platform actually for collaborating, which actually brings me on to the fourth collaboration that I'm working on at the moment, which is with Deb Driscoll, and we are going to be bringing to you a little series called Legacy and Leadership, and we are going to be going live on Substack. So Deb will be interviewing me, I'll be interviewing her. We're going to be doing a deep dive, culminating, we are hoping, with a live event, potentially an in-person event in London. So what an exciting collaboration that is. It really is quite electrifying. I think it's so energizing to be able to work with someone else on a project that is just bouncing ideas off each other and really birthing something, like I say, that is bigger than either of you could do alone. You just find that perfect sweet spot of alignment, and my goodness, it's fire. So I'm so excited to be working with Deb on that series. Another thing that's just come up actually about collaborating is it really builds resilience, because when you have a genuine collaboration, you're not on your own when things are getting really hard. You have that other person or people who really understand the work at that deep level, who can offer that perspective. And I think as entrepreneurs, if you're a solopreneur, that's really quite rare and really valuable. So it's another reason, if you haven't already thought about collaborating with someone, I would love you to use this podcast episode perhaps as a bit of a jumping off point and start thinking about who would be a great collaborator for you. And I think there's a lot of conventional advice around how to find the right collaborators. And it's often goes like, identify your ideal collaborator, reach out strategically and pitch a joint project. And honestly, that approach is fine if you are building a boring machine. Instead, I invite you to think about it a bit differently. Collaboration starts with the people who are already in your world, the people you already have a relationship with. If you're an ambitious business owner, there is this pull to land a collaboration, land a big collaboration with someone who's got a massive audience, because it will do so much to raise your profile and etc., etc. I'm not sure, as really kind of soul-driven entrepreneurs, which I think we really are. I think most people who listen to this podcast would class themselves in that way anyway. I think for us, it's about really looking at who you already have relationships with. And often, the best collaborations, certainly this is true for me. I'm looking at my little list that I made myself of the 4 collaborators that I want to talk about. Laura and I have worked together for years before we held our first retreat, for sure. Marion and I think I have been in her world for, a good 4 years, 5 years maybe. Rebecca, the same. Deb, certainly the last few years. So these are not examples of women that I have just kind of pitched to on doing something together. These are people who have been in my world already, and it's felt like a really natural progression to work together, to do something together, to create something together. We know each other on a deeper level already. So I think that's your starting point, is to really look at who is already in your world. That's not to say that you can't consciously look at widening your network and cultivate the conditions for a really good collaboration. And that can be, as simple as getting in the right rooms. If you are a member of a mastermind or a group program, if you are a person who goes on retreat, oh my goodness, retreats are such intimate containers for getting to know people really deeply in a short space of time. I think, anywhere that gathers people together with a similar level of intentionality, right? That's not networking. That is really allowing that depth of relationship to build. So I would absolutely say that's your starting point. First, you're looking at who's already in your world. Then you're looking at, okay, what are the rooms I need to be in to build relationships with women that I would love to collaborate with? I think another thing to do is to pay attention to who you're learning from. So thinking about the people whose work genuinely moves you. People who stand out to you as someone who maybe thinks a bit differently, someone that you find yourself referencing in conversations. Those people are really worth pursuing a relationship with, not a collaboration pitch, a relationship. Yeah. Noticing in your own audience, who is showing up for you consistently? Who are the people who are always commenting, always supporting you? Those are going to be people who are getting what you're doing at a level that perhaps most people don't. So some of those people are going to be potential clients, absolutely, but some of them could be potential collaborators. sort of resonance is really worth paying attention to and investigating for sure. And I think overall, the best collaborations that I've seen, and certainly the best that I've experienced, they have all come from friendships, professional relationships that have deepened over time until there was enough trust and enough of a shared vision to build something meaningful together. And that takes time, so don't rush it. Let it go at the right pace and it's going to feel good. So a few things to look for when you are considering collaborating with someone. The first one, and I've really already mentioned this, but the first thing is it's those shared values. And I don't mean like the aesthetics. It's kind of easy to be attracted to someone whose brand might look a little bit similar to yours and whose content sounds a bit like yours. It can be easy to feel a slight affinity with those people. But honestly, the aesthetics are not the values. You need to dig deeper. So how are they talking about things like money? How do they talk about clients? How do they approach failure and vulnerability? How do they talk about other people in their industry? The values that someone holds shows up in the details. So you need to really understand what matters to them. What are they willing to make a stand for? Those shared or aligned values are the things that are a real green light for a collaboration. The second thing is that I do think it's important that you find someone with whom you have complementary strengths, not just identical ones, because you want to collaborate, like I said, to build something that neither of you could do alone. So if you're both just brilliant at the exact same thing, you're potentially just going to have a bit of a best of breed version. Whereas I think if you've got someone who's really brilliant at strategy, for example, and the other person is amazing at building the relationships, brilliant. Whereas if you're both class yourself as the visionaries, who's actually going to get this thing over the line? The best partnerships definitely have a little bit of a productive tension in them. Best partnerships, I think, have all of the bases covered. So I think that's important to look for. I'm not saying that, you have to only collaborate with people who are completely different to you in terms of strengths either. That's not what I'm saying, but I think complementary strengths is a really good thing to look out for. I think reciprocity is so important here, and it needs to apply in respect of curiosity, the respect you hold for each other. So is this someone who is as curious about your work as you are about theirs? So a red flag, for example, might be someone who is only talking about their own work, that it's kind of clear that their only motivation for collaborating with you is to kind of further their own gains. So I think what we're looking for here is reciprocity in terms of energy, respect, genuine interest in each other's thinking, not just in what the other person can offer, right? I think you need to be pretty aligned on why you are doing it, why you want to work together on something. So I don't think you need to have identical business models at all. I really don't. But I do think you need to both be working towards something that feels meaningful in the same direction. So if one of you, say, for example, is primarily motivated by building a movement and that's the primary driver, and the other person is only motivated by the revenue, that's going to be a tension that's going to absolutely surface and resurface, usually at the worst possible time. That's something to definitely keep an eye on. And the other green light, I would say, is completely and utterly transparent and honest communication from the start. So watch how the other person handles anything even mildly awkward or difficult in early conversations. Do they name it, or do they just go quiet and not want to kind of broach it? Or do they get defensive? right? The way someone shows up before a collaboration is usually the way they're going to show up inside it. So just know that the chances are that if you haven't got that really open, honest communication at the beginning, it's probably not going to come once you're up and running and already sinking your energy and time into the collaboration. So that's definitely something to think about. So a few other red flags, I guess, to pay attention to. Like I say, I've been incredibly fortunate, and the collaborations that I've had, the ones I've mentioned, but also I've worked with Becky Benfield-Humston on Right Club. We collaborated on that, and other collaborations. You know, Alicia and I did a mini series for her book launch of The Shaman's Wife. And I've been incredibly fortunate. You know, these red flags honestly don't apply to the collaborations I've been involved with. But that's not by accident. That is because I don't collaborate with anyone that I haven't already built up a sustained relationship with and friendship with. So I think, you know, this is something to really pay attention to if you are... Maybe you have quite a small network. Maybe you don't have anyone obvious in your world at the moment and you really would like to experience collaborating. So therefore you're going a little bit external to your existing network. A few things here to really pay attention to that could be some red flags. The first one is if they're in a massive hurry. So if they're like pushing you to formalize a collaboration really quickly before you've had time to sort of like build that genuine trust, that's probably a little bit of a red flag. It could be a sign that they're not really in it for the relationship. They're in it for what the relationship can produce. So I would say that if anyone isn't willing to slow down and just kind of work towards building the relationship first, for me, that would be a red flag, right? Another red flag for me would be, and this is actually just a red flag in business in general. I just don't love this in entrepreneurs, but you know, if they are constantly talking badly about other collaborations they've been involved with, you know, if they're really quick to tell you why their last joint venture didn't work, and if the story about it has like no self-reflection in it, you know, so they're putting everything onto what the other person did wrong. That for me is a bit of a red flag. Could be a little bit of a preview of how they might tell the story if things don't work out the way you're expecting them to, should you work together. So yeah, it's something to think about. Mismatched energy, that is a huge one. So, you know, you need the energy to be really on a par with each other. If you find that you're the person that's doing all the reaching out, you're doing all of the thinking, you're holding all of the space for what's going on, you're booking all the meetings before the collaboration has even started, like all of these red flags are things to look out for, because I can guarantee if those things are happening before you've started working together, the chances are that that pattern's going to intensify once you're actually inside the collaboration. So that would be a red flag for me. I just wouldn't go further with a collaboration if those things were raising their heads. One thing for me that's super important and non-negotiable when you're collaborating with someone else, and that is having boundaries around ownership and credit, because it's all lovely and good to think, oh, you know, well, we know each other so well, it's fine, we'll just work it out further down the line. I would say the best collaborations are where everything is clear at the beginning. So ironing out any vagueness or any sort of defensiveness around who owns what and who's going to get credited for what and how any revenue is split, for example, particularly on a big collaboration. So take, for example, the retreat that Lauren and I have done. You know, for us, it's really important that we have those very open conversations. I mean, we put everything down the middle, but, you know, it's just really important to take all of those decisions around things like revenue split and workflow and workload split and all of that kind of thing. You need to have the conversations, have the tricky conversations at the beginning, because those kind of conversations honestly should be quite easy to have at the beginning. And if they're not easy at the beginning, they're going to be freaking brutal later. So I would absolutely say that is a real non-negotiable. So strong boundaries around who owns what, who's getting credited for what, who's doing which part of the work, how any money is being split, all of those things. Just get it super clear. And then the final red flag that I think is probably the most important one. If your gut is telling you something, but your brain is trying to override it, I want you to really hear this one. Don't go for it. Don't go for it. You don't need your intuition to explain why either. Trust it. Because if there's any kind of feeling that's like a bit off, slightly off, a hesitation, like that you can't quite put your finger on, a moment in conversation, in discussion that just didn't quite sit right with you, don't try and explain it away just because it's an exciting opportunity or, the person seems like someone that would benefit the growth of your business. I promise you it will not be worth it. And don't override your gut because you don't want to be difficult. Because you maybe feel like you've gone so far down the road and now you just don't want to upset or disappoint that person, right? Please trust your intuition around this. You will regret it if you don't. My goodness, I think we could say that about anything in business. Intuition always knows the score. So a few things I just wanted to talk about in terms of what's worked for me with collaborations, and hopefully there's something in that for you that you can take away. And if you're thinking of running an idea by someone in your network and you've got an idea for something that you could work on together, because it is really fun as well. It's really fun working together with someone else, especially when normally you're just doing everything on your own. It's really, really fun. But a couple of things that I would say that will stand you in good stead in terms of actually making it work. The first thing is I would say start small. Don't commit to a big overseas retreat if you've never collaborated with anyone on anything before, right? Do something together at a much lower stakes level. Do a joint live, do a guest episode, a one-off event, like a small event. Do something smaller together so you can see how you work together. See how your energy aligns. See if they do all the things that they say they're going to do. Make sure that you can show up as the best person that you can show up as. So definitely start smaller rather than bigger if collaborating is something that you're new to. And like I say, get clear on roles before you start. So who's leading what? Who's going to be the decision maker if you disagree on something? Could you divide up different areas and say, well, maybe I'll be the ultimate decision maker when it comes to the marketing, and maybe you be the ultimate decision maker when it comes to the offer. Just plucking things out of my head there. But yeah, get clear on who is responsible for what. Who's going to be handling the client communication? Who's going to be holding the money, right? I know it's like not the sexy part of a collaboration, but honestly, it's really important. It's as important as the creative part if you want to pull something off that really works well. I would definitely build in a check-in rhythm. So this is something that I think is important. Hand on heart, I've had collaborations where this has been really good. I've had collaborations where I don't think I've been as good as I could have been at this. But collaborations will or can drift if they're not tended to. So really regular, honest conversations about how it's going. The collaborations that I have at the moment, this is really important. The 4 that I'm kind of have in flight at the moment for all of us. It's really important that we have this check-in rhythm and that we are tending the relationship, tending the project, having regular, honest conversations about how it's going. All of that is what is going to keep it on track. And it also lets you course correct before small things become big things. So I think that's really important. I would also say, actually, this has just come up, give each other room to be different. This is really important. You're not merging into one person. That's not the point of a collaboration. So actually, I think it's absolutely okay to have different communication styles, different rhythms, different ways of processing things. You know, the collaboration will actually be richer for those differences. Don't try and iron out every single difference, work with it. Like I say, give each other that room to be yourselves. And then the last thing I wanted to share about structuring collaborations is make sure you both understand your exit. I'm not saying this to be pessimistic, right? You need to be responsible around the collaboration. You need to honor each other's time, each other's commitments, each other's energy. And every single collaboration, even the most beautiful, fulfilling ones, right, have a natural lifespan. And being clear about what a good ending is going to look like really means that you can recognize it when it comes, rather than sort of clinging on past the point of integrity, So I think that's really important. I feel energized by all of the collaborations that I'm involved with because I know that I have an honest enough relationship with each person, and we understand and have already had the conversation that if and when this no longer serves either of us, we'll have that conversation and we'll absolutely step away and honor the time that we've spent together in the collaboration, but without any need to feel badly or sad or disappointed at the end of it. And that's so important, right? So thinking about collaboration not as a strategy necessarily, although absolutely it can be an incredible marketing move to enter into a really good collaboration. It could be a fantastic way of growing your business and growing the other person's business. But honestly, I want you to look at a collaboration more like the things that I've talked about, like the declaration of trust, When you are introducing a collaborator into your world, into your audience, you're really declaring, this is someone I trust. This is someone I would love you to also work with, not just me on my own. It's a lovely energy about that, honestly. And when it's done right, collaborating can be one of the most rewarding things that you can do in your business. The right collaborators really make your work feel alive. And they're going to see things in you that you can't always see for yourself. And I find like the people that I collaborate with, they hold me to a standard because they care about the standard of the work we're doing together. And I actually love that. And it doesn't feel like competition. It never feels like competition. A good collaboration never feels like you're competing. So I hope this has been helpful. I think this is an important episode in terms of just giving you insight into where to start looking for potential collaborators. They're probably already in your world, but even if you are thinking of widening that network to look for people that would be a great aligned collaborator for you, hopefully this has given you a few pointers around what to look for, what to avoid, how to make it work. If it did land with you today, I would love you to share it with someone who you might think could be a potential collaborator. Let them listen to this episode. That would be a great place to start a conversation with them, right? Okay, I hope this has been a helpful episode for you. I'm going to pop some links in the show notes to all of the people I've mentioned in this podcast because these are all treasured collaborators of mine. They are all people that I trust implicitly. They are all people that I would absolutely recommend working with. None of them does the exact same work that I do. Remember I said it feels like such collaboration, not competition. So I'm so excited to introduce them into your world. If you've been following me for a long time, you probably recognize all of these names because I talk about them, these wonderful women all the time. But I will be popping links in the show notes, and I would urge you to explore what each of these women do in their businesses, as well as the ways that we collaborate together. Okay, have a fantastic week. As always, I would love you to reach out to me if you've got any questions, info@jillmokes.com. And if you are not already subscribed to me on Substack, why not? Please race there immediately and hit that subscribe button. I have a very accessible membership where you get to have hot seat coaching with me each month. And we also do co-working together. Remember what I was talking about? Masterminds, memberships, getting in the right rooms. This could be a good place to start. It only costs £15 per month. 15 of your Earth pounds. Can you believe? And that's my lovely little Substack community. So yeah, feel free to join that. My membership, it's called The Wild Work. I'll pop the link to that in the show notes as well. But also, if that's not your thing, if memberships aren't your thing, absolutely no problem whatsoever. You can become a free subscriber. I don't paywall any of my podcast episodes or my newsletters or long form articles. So you will still get to read all of that. You only need to become a member of The Wild Work if you would like to join me on those Zoom calls a couple of times a month. Okay, have a fantastic week and I'll see you back here, same time, same place next week. Bye for now.